Hey, old dogs. I just want to take a moment to welcome a new sponsor to the show, CBRE. CBRE is the #1 agency lender in the U.S. Their loans offer great features such as non-recourse debt, up to 80% leverage, and interest-only periods, all at the market's most competitive rates. To find out more and get a special deal only available to Old Dog listeners, go to www.cbquote.com/podcast. That's the letter C, the letter B, quote.com/podcast.
This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, we have a fun show for you today. I just know it's fun because I know the guest, and I just think this guy is really a great guy, and he's very fun. But our guest is Matt Bowles, co-founder of Maverick Investor Group. In 2007, he put this group together with others to help individual real estate investors buy performing rental properties in the top U.S. real estate markets, regardless of where they live. Matt and his co-founders at Maverick have helped individual real estate investors buy over $100 million in residential investment property across 15 states. His company was built with a unique virtual infrastructure. This is something we're going to talk about as we get into this a little bit deeper here, that facilitates location independence and lifestyle freedom for Maverick partners and their staff. So Matt and his crew that operate this company, they don't have an office, okay? So this is going to be really interesting. Now, Matt runs his company from places like pool decks in Dubai, beaches in Rio de Janeiro, and cafes in Paris. He has been a full-time what's called a digital nomad and lived in over 50 different countries since 2013. Okay. Are you guys like envious of this life or what? Okay. As a socially conscious business, okay, not only is he just having fun out there and a lot of it, but the company is running, they're helping people, but they also donate 10% of their net revenue to causes that affect positive change in the world. Matt is also the host of the Maverick Show podcast, which he interviews today's most interesting real estate investors, entrepreneurs, world travelers, and pulls out actionable tips and advice that listeners can begin applying in their own lives each week. Okay, that's a mouthful, Matt. Well, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Bill, so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, this is I'm looking forward to this. This is an area we really haven't really talked about, maybe, with a couple of guests that were kind of, I know people that are sort of virtual investors, but they kind of go travel someplace and then they come back home. Well, you being sort of a digital nomad is like something very different in that, if I could say this, you're homeless, okay? You're homeless, but you're traveling around the world doing these amazing things, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, skiing, Davos. I mean, you're out there doing all these cool things while you also have this business that you're running and that is providing the income through real estate so that you can do this, right?
That's exactly right, Bill. And I'm doing it with a whole bunch of other people. So basically, the idea is to figure out a way to become location independent and to remove geographic restrictions on yourself. And then you have the freedom of mobility to live where you want for however long you want and really design your lifestyle on your own terms.
That is absolutely amazing. So interesting. Well, before we jump into that, and we are going to talk about that and real estate and your company and a lot of other things, but tell us who, Matt Bowles is.
Sure, Bill. Well, that depends how far back you want me to go. But basically, my story sort of goes way back. I would say, my academic career and really my core passions coming up, through college and through grad school really was focused on social justice activism and, trying to affect positive change in the world. And so my academic background is in sociology. I have a master's degree in international peace and conflict resolution. Spent a big part of my life doing volunteer work around international human rights issues. And then I spent a number of years working in the nonprofit space in Washington, D.C., and trying to really, commit my life to affecting positive change in the world. And as I was doing that, I realized that basically I was never going to make a whole lot of money in working in the nonprofit world, and so it was a very important thing for me in terms of a fulfilling contribution I was making. But I said, you know what, I really should figure out also how to do investing on the side so that I can also, start building my wealth and doing all of that. And so I started investing in real estate on the side as I was working in the nonprofit space, right? And so I just started reading all the books that I could read about real estate, and then eventually bought my first house, which I bought a 4-bedroom house, and I lived in one of the bedrooms, and I rented out the other 3 to friends of mine. So I had 3 streams of income, which was covering most of my expenses with the property, and then the property went up in value almost 40% in the first year that I owned it, Bill. This was back in like 2004, about 15 years ago.
Did you do any improvements to it or just on its own?
Market appreciation, Bill, market appreciation.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm realizing, I'm like, wow, you know what? I literally made more money in just market appreciation by living in this house than I did at my entire job for the full year in terms of my salary. I'm like, that's a really interesting concept. So then I really started reading all of the real estate investment books I could get my hands on. And I basically then did a cash out refinance on my property. So I had more down payment investment capital, and I started buying out of state rental properties. And I really started studying that model very closely and looking at what other real estate markets could I buy in that would make sense, that I would diversify and all that kind of stuff. And so I started buying these out of state rental properties in different markets. And, people eventually started coming to me, friends of mine, including people that worked in the nonprofit space. And they're like, dude, how are you doing this, man? Like, can you show me how you're investing in real estate? I said, sure. And so I started showing them what I was doing. And all the while, of course, I'm studying every bit of this, right? In terms of how I'm buying, how I'm finding these properties, the companies that are helping me identify these properties and all of that. And I really, really understand the business model very intimately. And I also have a, number of people now that are coming to me and saying, hey, can you teach me? Can you help me? Can you show me how to do that? I also want to buy rental properties, in these other out-of-state markets. And I said, sure. So now I have all these people here, right? So what happened is then one day, unexpectedly, there was a change in management at my job. There's a whole reshuffle of the organization. And basically, long story short, I walk into work one day, unexpectedly get fired that day.
You saw that pink slip sitting there. You didn't know what that was, right? I've never seen one.
That was it. And to be honest, that really turned my world upside down, right? Because I was like, man, this is like a massive, shakeup. I was 30 years old at the time. I was like, this is a massive shakeup. Like, my head was spinning. And that day, I mean, it was literally, I had to hand in my phone because it was a company phone. So I literally, as I was driving out of the parking lot, I didn't even have a phone, like to call my mother or my best friend to tell them I was fired, right? So I literally had to drive to the Verizon store, to the cell phone store, to buy a phone so that I could call my mother to tell her that I got fired. I could call my best friend and say, hey, I just lost my job today. So it was a super dramatic thing. But I literally, remember on that drive to the cell phone store, I said, you know what? I think this is a major transitionary moment in my life. And instead of applying for another job, instead of, trying to go now work for another company, this could happen again. It could happen at any time. I am going to start my own business. I'm going to start it today. And I'm going to do what I know that I do well, which is help other people to buy investment real estate and out-of-state markets, because I've already been doing that. I just haven't been getting paid for it, right? And so I literally just drove, after I got my cell phone, I drove to the bookstore and I started reading books on how to start a business. And then, that just evolved, and I realized, man, I need to get a couple business partners because I know other people that have all these missing skills that I don't have, but together we could form this amazing company. And we basically took all of the lessons that we had learned in our real estate investing careers and applied them to developing what we call the Maverick approach to real estate investing, and helping people to buy performing, turnkey, already cash flowing, already renovated, already tenanted properties in out-of-state markets. And those properties already have property management in place, collecting the rent and handling the maintenance, so you can buy them and own them from anywhere without having to be the landlord, without having to be the rehabber, and you're buying them based on real estate fundamentals, right? So that's really what we did and the value proposition we brought to the market. And we've just been helping real estate investors buy rental properties and build their wealth, through real estate for almost 12 years now.
Now, are you still an active investor, or are you, is the company now providing the income so that you can do the things you want to do?
Well, both, Bill. I just bought a property just this past year. I bought a cash flowing rental property this past year. I'm going to buy another one this year. So I'm still, investing my own cash into the rental properties in terms of, for example, retirement money, right? So one of the strategies I'm using now is I'm trying to put, take my active income that I make from the business, and then I'm putting that into my retirement plan. And then in the retirement plan, I'm using that cash to buy rental properties as well for myself. So we do the same thing that we help our clients do, exactly the same thing.
How big is your portfolio?
Well, right now, this was interesting. I actually, and this actually goes back to one of my biggest lessons, right? Which is that a number of the properties that I bought back in the real estate boom, I ended up not buying them correctly, right? Meaning that I bought them based on too much speculation. I was buying them in markets that were appreciating fast, but they weren't cash flowing. So it wasn't really based on real estate fundamentals. And so part of the lesson that I learned the hard way was that you really need to always buy your properties based on cash flow and not based on speculative appreciation. And so for me, a number of those properties I actually had to sell, and some of them I had to short sell, or, I got into foreclosure situations with them and all of that. So I actually lost a whole bunch of that initial portfolio that I had built up. So, and then you take credit hits and you take all this other kind of stuff. So I am still in the process of continuing to rebuild my portfolio, but I'm doing that, one property at a time. And the same thing we teach our investors to do, Bill.
That's great. Now, how are you picking your markets? How do you know what's the best market to invest in?
That's a great question. And to be honest, the best markets change over time because, as you know, all real estate is local, right? There's no such thing as really a national U.S. real estate market per se. You got to break it down and understand what each of the local markets are doing, where they are in their local property cycles and all of that. And so, the properties that we were helping people buy in 10 years ago, most of those are not the same markets we're helping people buy on today. So, you had markets like Phoenix, Arizona, which were among the first to really bottom out after the real estate market crashed in 2009, 2010, 2011. So 10 years ago, a bunch of our clients were buying in Phoenix. They did great. The people that bought there did amazing. Their prices skyrocketed way up. They got a bunch of equity. They're still collecting their cash flow, or they've sold the properties and made a profit, and they did great. But today, in a market like that, the rents have not increased as much as the home prices. And so if you were to continue to buy there today, you'd be buying very expensive homes, but not getting as much cash flow. So the cap rates get squeezed significantly. And so once that started happening, we observed that. And then it made more sense, in a year like 2012 to go over and start buying in a market like Atlanta, Georgia, right? Which was, again, very near the bottom. You could buy, prices were low, rents were high. You could get into really good areas and really buy sensible investments. But again, the same thing happened there. So prices went way up. Rents did not keep pace with the price increases. And again, cash flow sort of got squeezed. And so, we have helped people to diversify their portfolio, to buy in different real estate markets, and today a lot of the markets that we're in are Midwestern markets. So places like St. Louis, Missouri, places like, Ohio, places like Indianapolis, those sorts of markets, as well as a couple East Coast markets that still make sense as well. But one of the ways that we structured our business model, Bill, and why we did it this way on purpose is so that we would have the agility to help our clients buy in the best real estate markets at the time that they're ready to buy, right? So part of the whole location independent thing as well is that we didn't want to start a traditional real estate brokerage in one specific market, because once you do that, the only way you can make money as a real estate brokerage is to sell properties that are in your market, okay? And as an investor, I know that the best markets change over time, right? So if I had a real estate brokerage in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'll tell you this right now, the brokers that do, they still telling people, oh, yes, it's the best market to buy in the country. Come buy in my market. Why? Because it's all they have to sell, right? So we wanted to position ourselves to take the investor's interest first and be able to have help the investor buy in the market that's best for them at the right time, and for us not to be, financially incentivized to do anything other than help the investor do what's in their best interest.
Gotcha. Now, in your investing, what would you say was maybe sort of your biggest mistake that you made early on that you've learned from and you've sort of re-engineered to do things differently and maybe better as a result?
Speculation and betting on market appreciation. Number one mistake that I made, and the number one mistake that I see investors making today. So you need to understand, when you're buying a rental property, you have a number of profit centers in your rental property. And the potential for future market appreciation is only one of those potential profit centers. And it should be among the least important to you when you buy, because you need to make your money when you buy, and you need to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to buy this property, and the day that I close, I'm going to be sufficiently profitable. Even if the market does not go up in value at all, I will still be happy with this investment, right? So we help our clients buy properties that are already performing. So when they look at that property, they say, okay, the cash flow is going to be this. I'm going to get this stream of income coming into my bank account passively starting the day that I close. Then I'll also be able to depreciate the property and take the tax benefits, right? And so on and so forth. And so, then if you get a mortgage, let's say, if you're going to finance the property, also you'll have the tenant paying down your mortgage principal. You'll be building equity that way and all of this stuff. So you need to be totally satisfied with that. And if the market does appreciate, it's a bonus on top. But if it doesn't, you don't need it to in order to be profitable. That's the big lesson, Bill. And that's what we try to help all our clients do.
That's great. That's great. And what would you say your biggest success has been?
Honestly, I'm going to go back to that first rental property I told you about, Bill, because
that was a slam dunk.
It was insane. I mean, first of all, it literally appreciated 40% in the first year that I owned it. So that was the craziest appreciation I've ever seen on a property. But I also view it as a success because I was, in addition to the appreciation, I was able to get the cash flow, as I told you, from the other three tenants starting the day that I closed. And the entire experience for me, in terms of the biggest kind of like aha moment or like, inspiration, I said, wow, real estate as an asset class has the potential to do all of these things. I need to look into it more. I need it to be a central part of my life. I really, really, want to do this. And that one first experience inspired me to do it. If if that experience hadn't been a success or hadn't gone well, maybe, I would have had a different impression about it. But, I was fortunate that my first experience had that happen in the first year, and that really, spawned the entire rest of my journey.
Interesting. It's funny. I'm going to kind of share with the listeners how I found you. And initially, I had been working on a podcast on Airbnbs, and I've been an investor in Airbnb, and it's been really great for me. And so I was just kind of looking around for information, and I stumbled across this guy that is into rental arbitrage. Okay. And I've talked about it on the show in the past. We've had people on that do this, but basically for those listening that don't know what that is, that's basically you don't buy a property, you rent somebody else's property, and then you rent that property out. And God, what is his name again? I forgot the name of the gentleman that you actually you were interviewing him on your show. So I just did a search on this topic, found this interview. And then what was really fascinating for me is that you were interviewing on a cruise, right? Okay. And it was a cruise with a bunch of digital nomads. So this really caught my interest. I'm going, what is this? What are digital nomads? And I don't know, maybe you could just kind of tell me a little bit about that, tell folks about that and what are digital nomads?
Yeah, absolutely. So the interview you're referring to I interviewed David Deng Vu was his name, and he
watch your language. No,
he has built a number of businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses in different spaces, and one of them is this Airbnb rental arbitrage business, and that's episode 16 of the Maverick Show, if anybody wants to go listen and check it out. And it's exactly what you described. And then he was able to scale that up, right? You rent the property long term and then sublease it out short term for higher nightly rates on Airbnb. And then you can he's been able to figure out how to make substantial margins doing that, and then scale it up to 20, then 30 properties and all that, and really build a business out of it. And so we go into talking in depth about exactly how he did that, as well as how he's built other businesses in totally separate spaces as well. And so what I'm doing with the Maverick Show, right, and I am trying to find and interview today's most interesting real estate investors, entrepreneurs, world travelers, and trying to really showcase and dig deep, and tactically in terms of how they do what they do, so that all of the listeners can have actionable takeaways that they learned from him. Just like you mentioned that you learned a lot from, how deep I went with David on the tactics that he uses to build that business. So, in terms of the cruise we were on, it was called the Nomad Cruise. And one of the things that I do, as you mentioned, is I have been location independent. Which, Bill, I will perhaps correct your term of homeless and maybe say that instead of homeless, I'm actually just houseless in terms of not maintaining one primary residence, but rather I travel around the world and I live. I intentionally created the mobility and the agility to move around the world and live in different places that are really interesting and exciting to me for as long as I want, right? So it could be a month that I might live there, or I stayed in Cairo, Egypt for 9 months. I stayed in Buenos Aires, Argentina for 3 months at one time, so I can live as long as I want, wherever I want. And what I have been doing is I've been plugging into these communities of other people that are doing the same thing, right? So location independent, and some of them are entrepreneurs, right, that are building really interesting businesses that allow them that location independence. Some of them are real estate investors, and they're living off the passive income from their rental properties, right, which affords the exact same freedoms. Okay, you build up a real estate portfolio. The passive income covers your lifestyle. You don't have to work at one job in one location, so you can travel the world. So a number of the people I'm traveling the world with are real estate investors as well. And so when I get into these circles, as you said, like, oh, I've never heard of that. Like, a lot of people haven't, but I can tell you that this is an incredible, I might even call it a movement, of an increasing number of people that are saying, wow, we really want to go and see the world and live an extraordinary lifestyle and just design our lives in this way and go live in incredible places and do incredible things. But the main challenge up until recently has been, man, if you try to do that long term, it gets pretty lonely, just traveling around the world. And so what's come together is a number of companies have come into the space and basically are putting together these meetups and these programs and these opportunities to go and live in amazing places around the world, or go to amazing events or things like that, but to do it with other digital nomads, other entrepreneurs, real estate investors that have created that location independence and want to go see the world as well. And that's just been an incredible space to plug into. And as I was doing that, I was like, man, I'm having such interesting conversations with people in such interesting places. I really wish that I could record these conversations and share them with the world. And that, honestly, Bill, was where the start of the podcast came from. I was like, man, I just need to get a couple microphones and turn them on and just record this and share it. So that's literally how the Maverick Show was founded.
That is so amazing. And you said there's a number of old dogs out there too, in the digital nomad space, right? So retired people, older folks that are also doing the same thing.
100%, and it makes total sense, right? Because if you have any, fixed income, or you're living off investment income, or you're retired, or you're running a business and you've built your real estate investing portfolio up earlier as well. But yeah, absolutely. Like, I interviewed amazing guy, episode 15 of the Maverick Show, Paulé Bowe. He started his digital nomad journey at age 50. He got rid of his house. He sold all his furniture, sold all his stuff, and began to travel the world with the goal of traveling to every single country in the world, starting at age 50.
It's so amazing. That is so amazing. And a lot of these folks, I mean, you kind of touched on it with that guy, you guys are minimalists. I mean, you blew me away in the fact that, okay, you interviewed me, you had basically everything you needed in your carry-on, which just blew me away. I mean, and you travel all over the world with just a carry-on, and so you travel light. But at the same time, you're also free, because you're not weighted down with all this other stuff. I mean, that's fascinating to me.
It's an art, Bill. I will tell you that I did not start out traveling with carry-on luggage only. I started out traveling with an obscenely enormous amount of checked baggage that was incredibly painful to roll around and carry around and transport all over the place. And what happens if you do that is you will be inspired. If you're planning to do this long term, you will be inspired and motivated to downsize quickly and efficiently. And so I started studying minimalist packing techniques and strategies and really implementing them over the course of years, right? So now I've been a full-time itinerant nomad for about going on 6 years. And so over that period of time, I've learned a lot of hacks and techniques and strategies for being able to travel with carry-on luggage only, and also remain fashionable and stylish. And you don't have to be a backpacker or whatever the stereotype is of that, but to be able to do this. And I know a number of other people, men and women, by the way, that do this as well. And a lot of people were asking me, how do you do that? How do you do that? So I actually do workshops on that as well, right? So like on this nomad cruise, I did a workshop on how to travel the world for a year plus with carry-on luggage only, and look good while you're doing it.
That's so great. Oh man.
Yeah, man.
That's great. That is so great. Yeah. I mean, I guess I had a version of that when I was like my college years, and and a little after that too, where I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I had the backpack, I had the guitar, but I had to have the guitar because when I would the backpack was like 50 pounds. It was just like pack, and I'd have to have the guitar so that when I started running low on money, I could just take out the guitar case and start playing in the subways and near Notre Dame or something like this or whatever it was, and you'd get your money to to live on for a little while longer. But you guys are doing it a little more classier than that. I mean, you're going to these amazing, beautiful resorts and places all around the world, which is pretty awesome. Sounds like a great kind of a great approach, and not being weighted down by all of the stuff that comes with sometimes living in a house and having cars and having all these other things that can really just make it tough to do anything.
It is, man. It's really psychologically liberating, to be honest. I mean, the ability to just travel the world and on a moment's notice, you could just go to another country and just choose to live there for however long you want. And just to have that kind of freedom is really liberating, I think. And then to be able to minimize your material possessions, I think also there's an incredibly powerful, I think, psychological effect of that, because what it does for me is it enables me to really focus and prioritize my life around valuing experiences and people as opposed to material objects and things, right? So where I want to spend my money and I want to spend my time and I want to spend my emotional energy is creating memories and having experiences and doing amazing things with amazing people and building meaningful relationships, as opposed to buying and stockpiling material items and bigger and better TV and bigger and better car and more clothes in my closet and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to put all my resources towards experiences and people.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, our audience is predominantly folks that are 50 years of age and older, although we have a lot of young people that listen. We really are gearing what we present to that audience. These are people that are approaching retirement or they're already in retirement, and they're looking at real estate really as a means for them to be able to have that sort of dream retirement, which may be encompass traveling all over the world or whatever it may be. But some folks are, are kind of apprehensive. They may not think that their pension or the funds that they've accumulated are going to go the long distance, especially as people are living longer and so forth. What advice would you have to those folks that, you've taken real estate and turned it into something that can truly support you in not only now, but I'm sure in the future as well. And you're going to have these assets, these tangible assets, years from now that also be a legacy you can hand down to your kids and so forth. So what advice would you have to folks starting later in life here to try and make up for maybe the gap that they have there in support to do the retirement the way they want to?
Well, I think it's never too late, Bill. And I think you're a really inspiring example of that. We talked on my show when I interviewed you about your start at real estate at age 58. So I think, it's never too late to start in real estate. And I think basically you just need to think strategically about the advantages of residential investment property compared with whatever your money's in now, right? If it's in mutual funds or it's in, stocks or it's in a bank account or it's in whatever, you just need to understand how much more advantageous rental property is compared to those other assets if you buy it right, okay? And so then it's a matter of doing your homework, educating yourself, understanding how to buy right. And then I think it's, just about starting with that first property and testing the waters, right? So if you say, okay, this, you've done your homework, you've done your research, every single person that comes into Maverick Investor Group, we do a full personal consultation with that person. We get to know them. We understand where are they in their financial journey, their life journey. What are their goals? What are their fears and concerns about going into real estate, right? What are their hopes and aspirations about going into real estate? And then we help them to identify the right market for them, the right type of property for them, the right pace and cadence for them to put together a plan where they can go from where they are now to their dream goal, right? And we know we work with a number of people that have been able to build their real estate investing portfolio up to the point where they are getting enough passive income to cover their living expenses. And that really is the goal because, traditional financial planning, Bill, for retirement has basically socialized and conditioned us to say, work your entire life for somebody else and build up a quote unquote nest egg, which is basically a pile of money, right? And then live off of that and just pray that you die before it runs out. I mean, that's really honestly been like traditional retirement planning, right? And
pretty depressing.
It's pretty depressing. I mean, even if you achieve that, it's still not exactly very exciting because you're supposed to live on less than you were making before and all this. We are turning that concept of retirement planning on its head, and we are saying, we don't believe in that. We want to take a more maverick approach to retirement planning and this concept of actually allowing your money to work for you in a meaningful way, the most meaningful way, right? By putting that into rental properties that are going to push passive cash flow into your bank account every month, plus give you all of these additional profit centers at the same time. And so I think it's really just, educating yourself and identifying the path for you. And we help all of our clients do that the first day they come in the door.
That's great. Well, I'm going to ask, I've never asked this sort of second question in the advice area here. Now, what about those that are listening and maybe, this guy is sitting here going, Mildred, I want to go on the road like that. This sounds great, and what would you have for those that are thinking of, maybe, we got this big house. I don't have kids living in it anymore. And, maybe I could turn that into cash flow and, by investing in real estate. Is it more sort of economical living, on the road? I say on the road because, it's kind of the musician thing, but it's like, but living on the road and going to places like Egypt or wherever it may be, Africa, and living there for periods of time. I mean, is it fairly, do you need a big budget to do that?
Bill, you will save so much money doing what I do that you won't even believe it. Okay. Like before I became a digital nomad, I was living in Los Angeles, California. Okay. That was my last long-term residence. Yeah. And I had a place in LA. I had a car. I had a car payment. I had insurance on the car payment. I had, you had the expense of going out in Los Angeles, right? I had all of these expenses. When I got rid of all of that and sold all my stuff, and then I started traveling around the world, even if you're traveling at a pace, okay, of, let's say, a different country each month. Doesn't mean you have to go that fast, but let's just say you wanted to say, I want to live in a different country each month, which I have done that pace, okay?
Let's see.
Okay? Even including all of my international airfare to a different country each month for a year on 4 continents, even when you include the international airfare, my total living expenses went down from what they were in LA significantly, Bill. And
wow.
I just want to give you this example. I mean, especially for people that haven't done a ton of travel, or the only travel that they've done has been to like go stay at a luxury resort for a short period of time or that kind of thing. If you don't have a full concept of like cost of living in different countries, the United States, and I assume most of your listeners are in the United States, is almost every place in the world is cheaper. Almost every place. There's a handful of places that are also expensive, obviously, certain places, but the majority of the world is dramatically cheaper than the United States. So one of my favorite countries in Asia, I'll give you one example, is Thailand. Okay. In Thailand, and there's an amazing city in northern Thailand called Chiang Mai, which is this huge digital nomad hub, and all these people are going there. A fully furnished apartment in Chiang Mai with all of your utilities included, high-speed Wi-Fi, internet, everything else, is approximately $300 per month, all utilities included.
Okay, yes,
Bill,
unbelievable.
Bill, you can go out in Thailand for a nice dinner at a highly recommended restaurant and get a seafood entree like a shrimp curry dinner at a good Thai restaurant for approximately $3 US.
Unbelievable! Wow.
You can get a 60-minute Thai massage on the beach for $8 US. I mean, this is the cost of living in Thailand. And so you can see, okay, so when somebody's like, I mean, this is the same thing, whether you're talking about retirees that are on a lower fixed income or whether you're talking about young entrepreneurs who have only a small amount of startup capital, right? They only have a small runway, right, where they got to build a business that works. All of these types of people might move to a city like Chiang Mai in Thailand because for $7,500 US, you can live for a year in Thailand and covering all of your accommodations, your transportation, your food, your entire living expenses could be $7,500 for an entire year, Bill. And that's a comfortable life. I mean, like, so it's amazing.
Real. Wow, that's crazy. Well, the answer to that question, yeah, I mean, because I remember too. I said, again, traveling when you're young, and I remembered we'd go to we'd be in Paris or something like that. We'd just get a baguette and some brie cheese, and and then we probably live on that for the day. You don't need a lot, too when you're traveling, you're up and about. But and I remember it was something a college student could afford. So it was pretty cool. But that's really interesting to hear. I'm sure there are other places around the world too where it'd be similar. Wow. Well, you've got this great company going on here. You got this neat lifestyle and all kinds of people connected to you, and all the people in your company, right, are all virtual. I mean, they're all over the U.S., right? So you guys are all kind of, I don't know if you're all digital nomads, but you're all in different parts of the world, I guess.
That's true. Yeah. Everybody is location independent. And then with that, people can exercise that location independence in whatever way they want. Okay. So I probably travel the most. I'm the most itinerant. I, move around. As you mentioned, I've lived in 50 countries in the last 6 years. My business partners are also location independent, but they might choose to exercise that in a different way. So my business partner, Valerie, is based in Washington, D.C. She does have a home base, and then she just travels for shorter periods and then comes back, right? My business partner, Mark, is based in Chicago. He has, wife and daughter and all of that. And so they're, in an area where they want to raise their child and all of those types of things. And so everyone has the choice about how they want to live, where they want to live. They can move tomorrow to anywhere they want. They can travel as much or as little as they want. And it's really about freedom and choice, Bill. And so, but the other thing it does for us as a company is it allows us to work with, we can hire staff anywhere in the world. Okay. So our social media community manager is in London. I have a virtual assistant who is our podcast production assistant who's based in the Philippines. Our sales director, Phil, is based in Boston. Our contract to close coordinator, Jen, is based in California. So we have staff all over the place, and they all have, we build relationships with our clients virtually, but we also enjoy meeting our clients in person periodically. We just did a flying by event where some of our clients came out to St. Louis, Missouri, and I flew out there. Phil flew out there. So they actually got to see the market, walk the properties, meet the ground team there that's providing the turnkey properties, speak with the property manager, do all those things. And we go out there and have a blast with our clients, have a good time, that kind of stuff. But, most of the relationships that we build are virtual because our clients can be anywhere. They can live wherever they want or wherever they need to around the U.S. or around the world, but still buy properties in the best U.S. real estate market. So they're not inhibited and required to buy in their local area.
Now, with any business, and especially one that deals with so many properties and so many clients and so forth, you've got to have file cabinets. Now, I know you can digitize a lot of that, but I mean, I just know sometimes when I buy a property, they just give me this big, huge stack of, with the deed and all the other stuff, and all the loan papers and all those things. I mean, do you have a place where you kind of store things, or an address, that you use that, or something related to that?
Well, first of all, we are a licensed real estate brokerage in the state of Nevada. Okay. So we do have a U.S. real estate license. We are a licensed brokerage. And technically, one of the compliance requirements for being a brokerage is that you do have to have an office in the state where you are located. So we do technically have an office. Now, no one works in it on a regular basis, okay? But we do have a mailing address, and we have, for legal purposes and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, we do have that. But in terms of documents and things like that, I mean, almost everything is digitized these days.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's all on Google Drive or one of the various cloud-based type systems that you can access things as you can on the road, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Wow. Well, man, we're zipping by here. Gosh, it's so many other questions I have here. This is just fascinating subject for me, and also, just it's neat. You got a lot of good stories to tell here. Hello, old dogs. Before we jump into our wrap it up session, I just want to share a valuable tip for you. You can find the best off-market properties at below market value and within a hot emerging market and think you've found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But without good financing, all that great stuff means nothing. However, our new sponsor, CBRE, may be the solution. CBRE has a loan for your next refinance, acquisition, or value-add project. CBRE is the #1 agency lender, and their loans offer great features such as non-recourse debt, which unlike most banks means your exposure is limited to the property only and not your personal assets. They also offer you up to 80% leverage in interest-only periods, which can help you maximize your cash flow or pull out more equity. CBRE's loans also offer the market's most competitive rates. In addition to traditional mortgages, their short-term bridge loan platform provides access to competitive financing for your rehab, renovation, and value-add projects that might take a little extra TLC before you get a permanent mortgage. And get this, CBRE is offering Old Dog listeners a $3,500 credit towards closing costs. That's right, $3,500 off your closing costs. Lock in your credit and receive an instant quote by visiting www.cbquote.com/podcasts. That's the letter C and the letter B, quote.com/podcast. See what CBRE can do for you and lock in your credit today at www.cbquote.com/podcast. We have a session we call Wrap It Up, where I actually look at just various resources. You kind of share things that have been valuable to you in real estate over time. And so if you're ready, we can go ahead and do our Wrap It Up session. Are you up for it?
Let's do it, man.
All right. Favorite real estate book?
You know what? I am actually going to recommend Frank Gallinelli's book. It's called Cash Flow. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly. In fact, it's one of our 20 top books. It's all on cash flow. It's all about cash flow.
It's about cash flow formulas. Let me try to see what the title of it is. It's called What Real Estate Investors Need to Know About Cash Flow.
Yes.
So that for me, I think was one of the most valuable real estate investing books. There's a lot of books out there about mindset or how to think about real estate or, why you should be in real estate and all of this kind of stuff. But that book, I feel like, is really an important just financial tactical book for real estate investors that actually break through all the emotional marketing and just calculate the numbers.
Yeah, I agree. And Frank's, he's such a bright guy, Columbia professor. He came up with an incredible software product too that's real helpful. But great book. How about favorite business book?
So my favorite business book, I'd say the one that impacted me the most over the last decade or the last 12 years is called The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And that book actually came out, Bill, right when I told you that I quit my job and I started walking into the bookstore every day to read books on how to start a business. That was 2007. One day I walk into the bookstore, that is on the shelf. I pick it up, I read it the day it came out, and I said, this is what I want to do. And so that really inspired the location-independent framework. And we said from the very beginning, as we design our business plan, let's build it in a way that will facilitate location independence so that we, the Maverick partners and staff, can be location independent ourselves. And then we can also help our clients to increase their location independence and their lifestyle freedoms as well through the real estate as well.
Yeah. And he also talks a lot about virtual assistants and using virtual folks as well, which is it's great information. How about your most valuable website for success other than your own?
The most valuable website. That's for let's see, for real estate in particular, or just business in general.
It could be either or. It could be real estate. Could be.
Here's what I'm actually going to do. I'm actually going to tie this into my last answer. After I read The 4-Hour Work Week, I went to Tim Ferriss's website. And his blog now gets millions of readers per month. And he also does a podcast called The Tim Ferriss Show. And to be very honest, I think that his ongoing content after that book, in terms of the blog posts that he's done and the podcast episodes that he's recorded, has honestly been some of the most impactful stuff that I have been able to apply in my life, both in terms of the business stuff, personal growth stuff, and otherwise. So I'm going to recommend that to people. If they don't know and they're not following Tim Ferriss very closely, I would highly recommend that they do.
Gotcha. How about favorite app?
Ooh, favorite app. I'm going to give you a cool one, Bill. It'll be a travel app since we talk so much about that. It's called Rome to Rio, and it's the number 2. So Rome, the number 2, RIO. You can get it in the App Store. And what it is you can type in any 2 places in the world. I want to go from here to there. So you can type in, from Orange County, California to wherever, okay? And it will show you all of the different ways that you can get from point A to point B. So you can get there by plane, train, take a train to here and then take the bus to here. Do exactly how to get from any place in the world to any other place in the world. And then you can click through and actually go in and buy the train ticket or the bus ticket or the plane ticket or whatever. It is one of my most amazing and most used travel apps. It's incredible.
Very cool. First time I've ever heard of that one. That is great. Great recommendation. How about your favorite quote?
Ooh, my favorite quote. I don't know if I have one off the top, Bill. Let me come back to that one.
Hey, the people listening can check our show notes, okay? And we're going to put his favorite quote in there. So it's a good reason to come to the show notes, okay? Just to get that quote from our dear friend Matt here. So, okay. All right. Or maybe in the course of this conversation, it just may pop into his head. You never know. Stay tuned. So our final wrap it up question. Here it is, okay? Everything you have just disappeared. I mean, it lost it. You have every asset you have is just gone. Okay, and this is probably an easy one for you because you're not real asset heavy, right? But all you have is $1,000. So now to rebuild the machine that you've created, so you can travel all over the world and do the things that you do. What would you do with that $1,000 to try to get back to that place?
The first thing that I would do is I would start networking and I would start doing things that don't cost any money. So I would start building relationships with people like you, Bill, that don't cost any money and coming on to other people's podcasts to try to share value with their listeners. And then I think you can start building up your connections, building up your network, getting in front of other people's audiences, other people's customers, all that kind of stuff. I think you can start to really build your personal brand with no cost at all. And then once people understand that you're able to deliver value, then they're like, I think I'll go follow that guy on social media, or I want to, see what he's up to. And then they can come to your website or they can follow you on social media and you start building an audience. And then as soon as you have that audience, you can basically say to them, hey, how can I deliver value to you? What would you pay for? What would you buy? And then they would say, this is what would add value to me. This is what I'd pay for. This is what I'd buy. And then you can just start delivering that. And you can just build, a business, build income from scratch. But I think that's how you do it. Get in front of people, provide value, ask them what they want, and then give them what they want.
I love it. Simple, but real true. Wow. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of folks listening here that, want to find out more about your company, find out more about you. They may want to, ask you about, even the digital nomad life or what have you. Do you have some contact information that folks can reach you and find out about what you do and about your company?
Definitely, Bill. So the first thing that I want to do is if people are interested in connecting on the real estate investment stuff, I want to offer them a free report that we put together. It's called How to Avoid the 7 Biggest Mistakes That Real Estate Investors Are Making in Today's Market. So as we mentioned earlier, different market cycles, there's different strategies, and we pay very close attention and really look at what types of things are tripping people up at different points in the market cycle. So we just put together this report. I wanted to give it anybody in your audience that wants to grab that. That's a cool way to connect with us. And you can get that just by going to maverickinvestorgroup.com/old dogs, and we got that free for everybody that listens to Bill's podcast, and that'll get you into our ecosystem as well. You can learn a little bit more what we're about. So on the real estate investing side, you can grab that report there. And then in terms of the podcast, you can listen to the Maverick Show, and the subtitle is Adventures in Real Estate, Entrepreneurship, and World Travel, interviewing some incredibly interesting people there. You can just go to themaverickshow.com. That's the podcast website. And you can just scroll through the episodes and, give a listen to a couple of the ones that you think are most interesting there. You can certainly subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts, iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify. We are on every platform. So you can check us out there. And we just put together a brand new site focusing on the digital nomad stuff, Bill, because we've been really trying to getting a lot of questions from people about, hey, how would I do that? Or how do I do it and plug into a community? Or how do I do that minimalist packing stuff you were talking about? Or how do I, this and that? So we put all of that stuff on one website. We're just calling it MaverickNomadLife.com. And so if you're interested in any of the travel stuff, how to start to become a digital nomad, how to pack with less stuff, how to do any of that, all of that information is at MaverickNomadLife.com. So those are the three ways you can connect with me. If you want to follow me on social media, my personal Instagram is at Matt Bowles Maverick. And if you want to follow me on social media, that's a good place to do it.
Cool. Very cool. Wow. Well, we have zipped through this so fast here, and man, I still have a lot of questions. But hey, we're just gonna have to have you back. That's the only way to deal with that, right? So, but I'll tell you, Matt, this has been great having you on. But we have this tradition here. We're called the Old Dogs REI Network, and all of our guests close us out with their best old hound dog howl. And now I know you've been like 50 countries. You've probably heard things howl that most of us have never heard howl. I mean, dingoes maybe, and or maybe it's like some rare animal that we never even knew about. But so we're really expecting something great here from you. And I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, Matt. But come on, you got to give us just your best howl, okay?
Well, Bill, can you do one first so that I can see what it sounds like?
People ask all the time, and I did it once, and I really regretted doing it because then the guy just tried to sound like me. It wasn't good. So now, okay, I'm leaving you on your own. I know you can do it. I mean, you're this guy that just like picked up and he took this, nothing and created this great little enterprise and is traveling around the world. And I know you can do it, man. I know you can.
All right, Bill, I'll give it a shot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my quote, and then I'll try to howl, immediately when I'm done with the quote. Okay. I've never done a howl before, but it's going to be pretty ugly, but I'll try it. So the quote is from Gary Vaynerchuk, and the quote says, "Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I want to do every day for the rest of my life?" And then do that.
Ooh, that is a good quote. Yeah, with Gary, I was wondering if there's going to be any expletives in it, but no, that was good. Okay. That is a great quote. Okay, you're ready now. You're primed?
Okay, I'll read it again and I'll do the howl. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I want to do every day? And then do that. Ow!
Oh, that was good. That was good. It had some good resonance in it. It was long. It had, and then it kind of faded away. Come on, that had all the right components of a good howl. Okay, that was awesome, man. It
was my first howl, Bill. I did it just for you.
Hey, man, I'll remember this. I might even just put it on my phone as instead of my ring. It'll. Okay, maybe I won't go that extreme, but anyway. Matt, it's been great having you on, dude.
Bill, so amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. Real pleasure.
Oh, man, the pleasure was all ours. And I also want to thank all our old dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we greatly appreciate it. Please note, everything we discussed here, okay, with our dear buddy Matt here is going to be in our show notes, our extensive show notes that we have here, including all the links to all the cool resources and websites and that free report that he's got. So don't forget to go to olddogsreinetwork.com/blog and look for the episode with Matt Bowles. So that is the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.